That's the title you saw. That's exactly what happened. Imagine this. It's midnight. Fog rolls off the lake like a ghost breathing over the water. I pull up to my family's old lake ranch, headlights sweeping across the gravel, lighting up the old dock, the weathered cabin, the silent trees that remember everything. I'm tired, man. I've just driven 6 hours after the funeral, with nothing but a half-eaten gas station sandwich and the weight of grief sitting in my chest like a cinder block. This place belonged to my grandmother. She was a legend in this town. People called her the Lake Watcher, but I just called her Grandma Ruth. She left this place to me, and tonight I was coming home. But apparently, I wasn't the only one awake. As I stepped out of the truck, I saw them. 3 SUVs lined up like sentinels at the edge of the drive, phones up, flashlights on, a bunch of HOA folks, live streaming on Facebook like it's some neighborhood reality show. And right in the middle, with her arms crossed, wearing that signature pink robe, Karen, you know the type, curled hair, lips pressed so tight they might snap, holding a mug of live laugh love, like a weapon. She didn't even say hi, just raised her phone and started filming. You're trespassing? She shrieked. I blinked. Trespassing? This is my property. She smirked. Oh really? That's not what the HOA says. I sighed, glancing around, feeling that old anger boil under my ribs. All I wanted was to walk down to the dock, breathe in the lake air, maybe see the stars and talk to my grandma in my head for a while. But now I had an audience. Karen pulled out her phone. I could see the screen flashing, her finger hovering over 911, and then she did it. She called the cops, at midnight, for a guy unlocking his own front door. Within minutes, I heard sirens slicing through the silence, blue and red lights reflecting off the water. The whole HOA was there, whispering, streaming, gossiping, neighbors peeking through curtains, dogs barking in the distance. A young deputy stepped out, looking tired, hand on his belt. Karen ran up, waving her phone, talking fast. He's trespassing, officer. We don't know who he is. He could be dangerous. The deputy looked at me, and I just stood there, clutching the one thing I'd brought with me from the truck, a black briefcase. The deputy tilted his head. What's in the case, sir? Karen smirked. She thought it was a gun or something illegal. You could see it in her eyes. I took a deep breath, unlocked the briefcase, and opened it, the hinges creaking into the cold night air. Inside was a letter, old, yellowed, folded so many times it felt like fabric, and on the envelope, in neat, sharp handwriting, Ruth Maynard, Environmental Prosecutor. The deputy blinked. Karen frowned. What is that? Some fake will. I pulled the letter out, unfolding it slowly, and I read it out loud. My dearest grandson, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're standing where you belong. This lake, these woods, and the ranch you stand on are protected under the Environmental Land Trust Act. I am the acting environmental prosecutor for this region, and this letter, along with attached documentation, grants you my authority to investigate, protect, and enforce any violations against this land, water, or wildlife. If anyone challenges your right to be here, show them this. With love, Grandma Ruth. Silence, total silence. The deputy's eyes widened. Ma'am, is this true? Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. I handed the deputy the folder from the briefcase, filled with documents, stamps, notarized signatures, maps. All legally binding, all ironclad. Karen's hand trembled, still holding her phone. She had nothing. The deputy cleared his throat. Ma'am, it appears he has every right to be here. Karen's face turned red. The HOA folks started whispering. Some lowered their phones. A few just walked away. She tried to speak. I didn't know it's a safety concern. The deputy turned to me. Sir, is there a problem here? I shook my head. No, officer, just came home. He nodded. Welcome home, sir. And then the deputy did something I'll never forget. He nodded once, and he saluted. Karen froze mid-breath, mid-rant. Her eyes darted to the ground, and she took a step back. She tried to shame a man honoring his grandmother's legacy. She tried to shame a family. Instead, she got a salute. And the beginning of her downfall. They thought it was over that night. They thought I'd just roll in, unpack, and forget the way Karen's eyes burned with fake authority under that porch light. But Grandma Ruth didn't raise me to forget. She raised me to finish what she started. The next morning, the mist was still curling over the lake, quiet except for the birds and the soft slap of water against the dock. I brewed coffee, black, standing on the porch, watching, listening. But peace, it didn't last long, because Karen came back with Marcus Webb. Marcus wasn't your average HOA paper pusher. No, he wore suits that cost more than my truck, hair slicked back with that "trust me, I'm a lawyer" grin that made your skin crawl. They strutted up the driveway, clipboard in hand, filming on Marcus's phone. Karen's voice was sugary sweet, fake concern dripping. "Oh, we just came by to drop off a few notices. We have policies about non-native plant removal. Your truck might leak oil on HOA roads, and..." She trailed off, looking over my shoulder at the lake. Her eyes narrowed. "That dock doesn't look regulation height." I stood there, coffee steaming in my hand. She kept talking, something about fines. "Violations, environmental codes." Marcus cleared his throat. "Mr. Sullivan, unless you comply with HOA ordinances, we will be forced to pursue legal action." I just looked at them and I smiled. Slowly, I set my coffee down, walked back inside, and grabbed the briefcase. They stopped talking. Karen's eyes widened. Marcus's jaw twitched. I came back, opened it again, pulled out another document Grandma Ruth left for me. An environmental survey of the entire lake property. Every inch documented, with one critical detail: the land the HOA claimed was theirs was never theirs. Grandma Ruth had known, and she made sure I would know too. I handed Marcus the paper. "Read it." He tried to keep his face neutral, but I saw it, that flicker of panic. Karen leaned over, squinting, her lips moving as she tried to process the legal words. "It says here," I explained, "that your HOA boundary ends at the road. Everything past that, dock, lakefront, trails, is under my family's deed, has been since 1872. Marcus cleared his throat again. "Well, this doesn't change the fact you're under HOA regulations for..." I cut him off. "No, you have no jurisdiction here, and you know it." Karen's hand tightened around her phone. I could see the live chat popping up on her screen, people watching, commenting. Karen's face started to flush, and then she made a mistake. She tried to grab the paper from Marcus's hand, tearing it. "You can't just wave old papers around and think you're above the law." That's when I pulled out the last envelope in the briefcase, a letter from the county assessor's office, confirming the land lines, confirming the water rights, confirming that every claim the HOA had was invalid. I held it up to the camera on Karen's phone. "Say hi to your viewers, Karen. I'm sure they'd love to see the moment you realized everything you've been telling them is a lie." Karen's mouth opened, closed. She was shaking now. Marcus looked like he wanted to melt into the gravel. And then I said it, "This land isn't under your HOA. It never was, and you know what that means." Karen swallowed hard. "What? What does that mean?" I leaned in, lowering my voice so only they could hear. "It means that every fine you issued here, every threat, every dollar you took from my neighbors under the lie of lake front maintenance fees, is fraud." Their eyes widened. Marcus's phone dropped a few inches. Karen's lips trembled. "Get off my property." Now, they didn't move, so I stepped forward. And with the calm that comes when you know you're holding the truth in your hands, I repeated, "You're trespassing." They turned, slow, silent, walking back to their SUV, the live stream still rolling, thousands of viewers watching as Karen's fake smile cracked. I watched them drive away, tires crunching the gravel. Then I looked down at the lake, shimmering under the morning sun. This was my family's lake, and now it was time to protect it. Because Grandma Ruth didn't leave me this place to let it get stolen by power-hungry neighbors. She left it to me to fight for it, and I wasn't done yet, not even close. The sun was setting, painting the lake orange and gold when the knock came. I knew it was coming. Karen never backed down quietly. I opened the door, and there she was. Karen and two uniformed officers standing behind her. Her eyes were red from crying or rage, I couldn't tell. Her hair was frazzled. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. He threatened me." The officers shifted uncomfortably. They looked at her, then at me, then down at the paperwork in her trembling hands. "Sir, she claims you made threats, that you're refusing HOA compliance and you've harassed the HOA president. I let out a slow breath, stepping aside. Come in. They glanced at each other. One of the officers stepped inside while the other stayed with Karen on the porch, her phone up, live streaming again. I could hear her muttering, "He thinks he's above the rules, thinks he owns the whole lake." I walked to the table, set down the open briefcase. One by one, I laid out the documents Grandma Ruth had prepared. Deeds, water rights, environmental surveys, the letter from the county. The officer read them slowly, carefully. His eyes widened a bit as he flipped through the pages. "Sir, you're telling me this property isn't under the HOA." "I'm not telling you," I said calmly, pointing at the documents. "The county is." He scratched the back of his neck. Outside, Karen's voice was getting shrill. "You're just going to let him get away with this?" The officer turned to the door. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." But Karen wasn't done. She pushed past the other officer, storming into the cabin, phone still recording, screaming about violations, about the dock, about the sign on the mailbox that wasn't approved. She was shaking, sweat on her forehead, her hands flailing as she pointed to everything, demanding citations, demanding arrests. "Ma'am," the officer said firmly, "you need to step outside." "No, he's a liar, he's a thief, he's..." That's when I calmly picked up the last document in the briefcase, the cease and desist order filed that morning. Karen froze, her eyes locked on the bold letters at the top. "What's that?" she spat. "It's your notice," I said quietly. "Your HOA is trespassing, harassing, extorting. Pause. And starting tomorrow, if you or your board steps foot on this land again, I will file charges." The phone in her hand lowered, slightly. Her breathing was ragged. The officer stepped between us. "Ma'am, we're going to have to ask you to leave." Karen turned, her face a storm of anger and disbelief. But this is your all." The officer's radio crackled. "Unit 4, we're getting calls about a disturbance." Karen was still talking, still ranting, but no one was listening anymore. The officer escorted her out the door. Her voice was muffled by the soft evening breeze and the hush of the lake. And then the door closed. Silence. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I walked to the window and watched Karen's car drive away, her taillights disappearing into the trees. The lake shimmered in the moonlight, calm again for now, but I knew Karen, she wasn't done. Not yet. She'd come back, she'd fight, she'd smear my name in the HOA Facebook groups, spread rumors, threaten lawsuits, and try to rally the neighbors against me. But I wasn't afraid, because I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for Grandma Ruth, for the legacy she left me, for every neighbor too scared to stand up. I looked down at the documents, neatly stacked again in the briefcase, my armor, my shield. This wasn't about a barbecue anymore. It wasn't about a dock or a mailbox. It was about standing up to power that thought it could get away with anything. And Karen was about to learn that this lake ranch wasn't for sale. Not to her, not to her HOA, not to anyone. Tomorrow I'd take the next step, file the injunction, notify the neighbors, show them the truth, and remind Karen, this isn't her lake, it's mine. Sunrise over the lake, a calm that didn't match the tension rolling in my chest, because today was the day Karen would realize she lost, for good. I brewed a cup of coffee, stepped onto the porch, and let the crisp morning air fill my lungs. Birds were chirping, water rippled softly against the dock. You wouldn't think that this quiet place had just been the center of chaos, but the tire tracks in the dirt driveway were still fresh. My phone buzzed. It was Sheriff Daniels. He'd gotten my email last night with the documents, and the videos, and the copy of the cease and desist. "Morning, Maverick," he said, his voice calm but serious. "We need to talk." 20 minutes later, his cruiser rolled up the gravel drive, behind him a couple of unmarked SUV, and Karen's silver sedan, creeping up the road, stopping when she saw the parked cars. She was here to watch or to fight, maybe both. Sheriff Daniels stepped out, hat tucked under his arm. "Son, you're doing the right thing," he said. We walked together to the porch, where the briefcase sat, waiting. I opened it one last time, and this time I pulled out a single sheet of paper. The injunction, signed at 7:04 a.m., filed against the HOA for harassment, trespass, and fraud. Karen's door slammed. She stormed up the drive, her eyes wild. "What is this?" she shrieked, waving her phone. "You think you can?" Sheriff Daniels raised a hand firm. Karen, stop. She froze, a flicker of fear in her eyes. I've reviewed the documents, he continued, and this property isn't under your HOA. It never was. Karen's jaw dropped. No, that's not true. The maps, the bylaws. Daniels pulled out a county map. Marked in red were the HOA boundaries. My property was outside them, clearly, undeniably. Karen's face turned pale. That's a mistake, she stammered. Daniels shook his head. No, Karen, the mistake was trying to enforce your rules on land you don't control. Karen took a step back. The fight was draining out of her eyes. She glanced over her shoulder. Neighbors were gathering, watching. Phones were out, recording, and for the first time Karen seemed to realize she had no power here. I stepped forward, holding the injunction. Karen, this means if you, or any HOA member, steps on this property again, you'll be charged. She swallowed hard. Her eyes darted between the sheriff, the neighbors, and me. But we were just trying to maintain standards, she whispered. Your standards don't apply here, I replied softly. And you knew that. A tear slid down her cheek, but I felt no satisfaction, only relief, because this fight was over. Daniels nodded to me. You're within your rights, Maverick. He turned to Karen. Go home, this ends today. Karen turned slowly, her shoulders slumping as she walked back to her car. The neighbors parted, whispering, filming, recording her fall from power. And when she reached her car, she looked back one last time. Her eyes met mine, and I nodded. Because I wasn't her enemy, she made herself mine. But it was over. I turned back to the lake, the morning light dancing on the ripples. The birds had started singing again. A breeze rolled off the water, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Grandma Ruth's words echoed in my mind. Protect this place, Maverick. It's yours now. And I would. No HOA, no fake rules, no intimidation. Just the lake, just the trees, just the promise I made to her. I walked down to the water's edge, dipped my hand into the cold, clear lake. And I smiled because the battle was over and the ranch was safe forever.